to start correcting it. Okay. So, and then separately, then for 20 years, I've been involved in advising governments. I was 10 years on the Advisory Science Council. I've been an expert in the European Union for 15 years, and I actually worked as a seconded national expert in the European Commission in the unit for the global coordination of everything, because I became aware in SARS-1 and 20 years ago that there were also issues with the World Health Organization and how these cycles of so-called pandemics were being, maybe not a full pandemic being called, but insinuating that SARS was something that was a great threat to the world, when if you actually looked at the data, it was the chance of dying from SARS in the world was 1 in 8 million. So there was no need to make it. And there has been, swine flu, avian flu, and now we have another, SARS-CoV-2. And so I understood 17 years ago this was incorrect. I've been trying to, within the government system, advisory system, highlight the errors, but of course getting nowhere. And so that's why I was been following this from December, and I could clearly state on the 11th of March 2020 there was no reason to call it, right? The chance of dying of this one was 1 in almost 2 million, okay? Right, so your chance of dying cardiovascular disease 1 in 3, cancer 1 in 3. But this one, when they called it, 56 people died in the world in March from it, right? It was one of the lowest diseases of the world. So TB kills 3,000 every day. So basically because of and I also ran a biosafety lab in the Max Planck, which is one of these things like Wuhan, except mine was class 3, but I've worked in class 4. So I would kind of have a lot of experience in what is going on, and also how there's resistance in the funding agencies and in the governments for actually addressing the issue, Yeah. So that's me. And then, of course, about 7 months ago, I came out and said there was no need for the lockdown and that I would take personal responsibility in Ireland or the European Union or in the UN, because I have worked in a lot of these agencies. There was no need for social distancing. They should tell people you can boost your immune system, vitamins D, C, and zinc, make drugs available, and no one need die. So I'm saying COVID-19 is a preventable disease. And also, people can only die in the Northern Hemisphere of coronavirus in up till April. Any death after April 2020 cannot be caused by coronavirus. So there's huge reasons for not locking down the world. Yeah. So that's me, Christopher.
Well, that's what's so beautiful about you, just one side of you. When people actually get to see you come out into the public, radiating in the sun and speaking to the crowds, that is truly a wonderful moment. And that's when I really think your game really comes together, Dolores. So, like I said, that's why I want people to know she's not just another pretty face here, okay? This is a woman she's got, pardon my language, the nuts, so to speak. She's got everything behind her. You couldn't ask for someone more incredibly intelligent that's been involved, submersed in this world from viruses and analyzing data and actually being able to speak to it. As she said, you worked for the European Union for how many years, was it?
Well, I've worked for 15, 20 years as an expert, but I worked in the unit for the global coordination of everything for 2013-14. But in that unit, I was working between the EU and China, South Korea, in the Asia unit. But I had another role, which was the global coordination of health during the Ebola crisis, right? So I was the one organizing meetings between Bill Gates and the president of the European Commission, Barroso, as global coordinator for health in the middle of the Ebola crisis, which was not well handled in the European Union. Yeah. So, I would have seen it but in that role, I would only be like a secretariat, a policy person in the background. But of course, you have to read an awful lot of information and react and respond to global crises when you're in that unit for global coordination.
Right. And where did your passion come from? If I can just touch, again, we'll just stay on this for just a little bit longer, your foundation. Where did this passion from you come from as a young woman going into this field? What interested you to go into this field was it medicine, science, a combination of both, or?
Well, actually, I got medicine. I was one of the few people who decided to study science because I love traveling and I wanted a career that I could travel. And I was aware if you do medicine, that if you travel, to different countries, that you would have to re-qualify and do various exams. I was also interested in law as well. But I think probably my passion comes from that I grew up in a beautiful area, the Valley of Slievenamon. And my father would be, he's a farmer, but also, he used to help everybody all his life, and a lot of people would come for advice. And when I was young, there was a lot of banking crises, and a lot of political upheaval and tax systems. and it looked like the country, you know, even then as a child, the nobody was really solving problems. And my dad would have helped people get elected and was kind of a political advisor, even though he was a farmer, you know, an ordinary person, but he was very wise and very strategic. But also he helped, there was a lot of banking issues at that time where people were being kicked out and farms were being kicked out, and we entered the European Union and they were undermining the fishing industry and farming. And my dad